Today I want to talk about a topic that's near and dear to the hearts of all men. Their penises. What about them? Their size? Are we man enough? What can we do about it, if anything? And why does it matter? I don't know about you, but I kind of grew up feeling fascinated about penises. Obviously, I'm married to a man, so that's a huge part of it. But I think there's something fascinating about them for all dudes, regardless of your orientation. There's so much social stock placed on the size of your member. And we see this everywhere. Cartoons, commentary in movies. There is social status given to somebody for having a big dick. Like I was reading one of my favorite gay comics today, an artist named Songin Kolo. I support him on Patreon. And yet again, there was another comic about the fact that having a big penis gives you worth in society, especially gay society. Now, one of the things that we should bring to mind is that a lot of guys don't actually know what is normal. Many of us base our assumptions on normal penis size on pornography. And while pornography is a wonderful extrapolation of reality, we should not mistake it for reality itself. I can't speak for you, but I personally have never had sex like in a porn where where I'm banging someone or they're banging me for like 25 minutes straight. Oh my god, right. I've never had sex like that. Maybe you do, but that's not what my sex life is like, and I don't particularly want my sex life to be like that. But first, let's comment that in pornography, they are hiring performers who are notably of larger size, much larger than the average population. And B, there's a lot of camera tricks and photography tricks to make people look bigger. And the receptive partners, whether it's a man or a woman, is usually significantly smaller in stature than the man doing the penetrating, so that way when their hands wrap around their penis or they hold their face next to their penis, it looks tiny in comparison. So you might have a 5'2" actor or a 5 foot actor being paired with somebody who's like 6'4", 6'5", and then they look even more gigantic by comparison. Now, there's been quite a bit of research done about penis size, both medical studies and also self-reported studies. So I would like to give you a little bit of a pictorial representation of penis size and averages and what they actually are. So King's College of London measured dozens and dozens of men from age 17 upwards. According to them, the average erect penis is 5.16 inches long and 4.6 inches thick. What do you think? Is this about what you would have expected? Smaller, bigger? One of the arguments against medically studied penis size is that a lot of the men who might be going to the doctor and be willing to have their dick measured are doing so because they're dealing with some sort of erectile problem to begin with. So some argue perhaps science underestimates the average size of a penis. Let's take a look at a condom manufacturer, such as Durex condoms. According to them, the average penis size is a little bit bigger, about 6.5 inches by 5.25 inches. What do you think? I'd still say that this is a pretty sizable dick. I would be surprised if this were the average in my experience as a gay man. It seems like a little bit bigger than I would expect. According to science, about 85% of guys will fit somewhere within this range with their penis size. If you want to go online, you can find a lot of different websites that ask men to self-report their dick size. Now, of course, with this, a lot of guys exaggerate. One website that asks men to submit measured photos is thevisualizer.net. They allow men to create 2D and 3D renderings of their penis that they can then compare with other men. So according to them, this is the true average, Mr. Medium, they call him. And we see it's just slightly smaller than the Durex survey. I will say, in my own experience, and pretty much any guy I know, you ask him his dick size, he's going to round up. Even if he's presenting a measured photo, he's going to find that camera angle to make it look just a little bit bigger. So take it for what it's worth. According to the visualizer, their average of men on the smaller side of things is around 5.1 by 4.6 inches, which we see is just, again, slightly smaller than what King's College London said was average. Now, according to them, the average of men on the larger size, they call him Mr. Large, 7.5 by 6 inches. And I'd say that is a pretty big ass dick. For me, I mean, my hand barely goes all the way around it. If someone whipped this out, I'd be like, that's not going inside of me. That's not going anywhere. That would be uncomfortable. And I'm sure there's lots of guys who feel differently, but that's a pretty damn huge cock. And then they have, on the visualizer.net, they also create their average of who they would call Mr. Huge, Mr. Huge is a whopping 8.8 inches by 6.8 inches. I mean, my hand does not reach all the way around anymore. That's freaking gigantic. I would say that in a room of 2,000 men, maybe 2 or 3, maybe 1 have a dick that size. It's very, very, very uncommon. So the next time someone says, hey, I've got an 11-inch dick, really? Because I'm not so sure that that's really that possible. Just to show how camera angles can come into play, let's take a look at King's College London when taken from a low angle. Let's take a look at that. Does it look bigger from this perspective? Porn can use a lot of tricks to make things look bigger. Now imagine I'm almost 6'2", look at somebody who is maybe a foot shorter than me. This would look gigantic next to their head. And then go to Durex condoms average, even bigger, right? Oh my God, that's huge, look at that. Oh. And then we look at somebody, let's say like Mr. Large, okay, 7.5 by 6 inches. Like that looks gigantic, like, I wouldn't, it's not even gonna fit in my mouth. Let alone Mr. supposedly 11 inches. Not real. One of the things that can be of value to you, just to put things in perspective, is to do this for yourself. Measure out your girth, measure out your length, and these are all done bone pressed, which means you press the ruler into your pubic bone. Take a look at it and say, wow, that might actually be bigger than I thought. Now, for a lot of men, where they're going to see penises most is in a locker room setting or some other social nudity setting, which isn't necessarily a fair representation of what they're like in an erect state. Obviously, there's some guys who are big showers, meaning that they hang really large when they're soft, and then some guys are big growers, where they grow almost seemingly exponentially when they get hard. So locker room is not the greatest setting to compare because you really don't know. I know for me, like the first time I ever felt like I really got a good sense of things was when I went to a bathhouse in Paris. It was like shortly after I got married. I went with my husband's permission, and it was really awesome to get to see all these different type of bodies unclothed and in the open, and to see dozens and dozens of erect penises and see what are they actually like. I should just mention that I didn't actually hook up with anybody there. I just went there to watch and partake in the environment, which was actually a highlight moment of my life. It was really, really meaningful to me. But most guys do not have that experience, at least straight men don't. Most men have not had the opportunity to be in a room with dozens of other erect men in a sexual or pseudo-sexual environment to really get to compare themselves to see where they fit in. And one of the hard things, pardon the pun, is the fact that people tell stories about the enormous person that they saw, whether it was an ex-boyfriend or someone they saw somewhere, and they're like, oh yeah, that person was like 14 inches. And that's really not accurate. There is a website online called the Large Penis Support Group where they've been offering a $10,000 reward for anyone who can offer a legitimate picture of a penis that measures over 10 inches. It's been running for a couple of years now, and thus far nobody has actually claimed it. They talk about it on the internet as being like girl inches, right? Like, oh yeah, my boyfriend's a foot long. That may not be accurate. So we look at these statistics and we think, okay, cool. So I'm probably much more normal than I thought. Woohoo! That's okay, right? It's not as exciting as I would hope because there still is this social cachet that comes from being considered super well endowed. I know for myself, when I was a kid, I thought the average penis was 13 inches long, and I felt really inadequate because of it. Then I learned that that wasn't the case. But then even then, when I started dating and I started hooking up with guys, I noticed how men would use stories of other people's penises and their size to try and like manipulate me and make me feel less than. Be like, oh yeah, well you're really big, but you know, I had a boyfriend who was like 13 inches, so. And even still, like, even knowing that I'm, you know, on the far end of a scale, I still don't feel secure enough because there's this still idea of if there's somebody out there who's bigger and better, then I feel insignificant, that I want to be the best. And I get that that's reflected in other areas of my life, but that's kind of like a long-standing story for me of like, I've always wanted to feel, especially when I was younger, I've done a lot of work around this, but I always wanted to feel like the smartest or the most successful or the best one. But really, where does all that come from? For me, that all boils down to this feeling of self-doubt, a feeling of insufficiency, a feeling of, I at my essence am not good enough. I at my essence am not lovable the way I am. Because in all practicality, what would I do with a 13-inch penis or even an 11-inch penis. It's not gonna fit anywhere. I mean, yeah, there are those random people who love to be fisted, that they love these gigantic things inserted inside of them. But my husband certainly doesn't. And, you know, frankly, like, my husband can't bottom for me as it is. So why would I have this desire to want to be even bigger? Where does that insecurity come from? And I think it's present for a lot of men. Like, I don't think it matters how big you actually are. There's always this feeling of wanting to prove yourself. This is directly reflected with steroid culture in the gay community too. There was a statistic that showed that 1 in 7 gay men will admit to having used steroids in the last year alone. Because in gay cultures, there's this idea of having to be ultra masculine. That just being a man isn't enough. You have to be an ubermensch. You have to be the fittest, the strongest, the most hung, the most successful, make the most money, the youngest, drive the best cars, be the most popular, be the best dancer, have the hottest boyfriend. And it's all a reflection on this lacking of self-worth. And it's also not accepting diversity. You look at the queer community, or at least I should speak only for the gay male community. Who do we celebrate? Ultra-masculine white men. We don't celebrate femme men, people of color, body diversity. On one season of RuPaul's Drag Race, one of the finalists, Kim Chi, who I actually met a night out in Chicago, she talked about how nobody wants her because she's fat, femme, and Asian. She's like a triple threat. And we don't accept people for being anything other than these proverbial supermen, but nobody's like that in real life. And so we drive these men to feel worse about themselves and do extreme things to their bodies to make themselves feel like they can be accepted. Now I get, me drawing attention to this is not going to necessarily change things. You're still going to want to be more fit, more well-hung, more quote-unquote desirable. And I get that there is a certain amount of leverage and a certain amount of power that comes from being those things. So then, since the topic today is about penis size, what can we do about it? One of the things that you've undoubtedly seen around the internet is the idea of using exercises to make your penis bigger. Do those work? In my experience, yeah, they do, but they take hours and hours and hours of dedicated effort. If you think going to this gym and trying to get fit without using steroids is a slow process, multiply that by about 4. And that's how slow the exercises take to show gains. If you want to find some really good resources on how to use exercises to make your penis bigger, a really nice resource is Reddit. There's a subreddit called A Jelq for you, Jelq, and it's a lot of people sharing their experiences, their exercises, and what works for them. Another resource you could use is surgery. Now, there's not a lot of great options right now for making penises longer, but dermal fillers like they use on faces have now become popular with penile injections. So you can go and get some facial fillers injected under the skin of your penis and increase its girth by 1/2 inch, 2 inches even. Of course, they come with risks. Your body can reject it. There can be infections. You're probably not going to have the most symmetrical or the most possibly aesthetically appealing penis, but you can make it bigger that way. And some of them are permanent, some of them are temporary. They do come with their risks, so if that's something you're actually going to consider, put in the research. Another aspect of the penis enlargement community is people interested in silicone. Now, silicone is really dangerous because it can be toxic to the body. It can migrate to your lungs and suffocate you. That said, that hasn't stopped a lot of guys from using silicone to make the skin around their penis or their testicles a lot bigger. You can find some really graphic depictions online of men who've blown up their junk to be gigantic. Again, it's a little bit of more of a fringe community, but that is an option. It's not one I would personally want to take. I think the best thing we should do is try to find acceptance. It really doesn't matter how big your muscles are. It doesn't matter how big your dick is. It doesn't matter how much money you make, what kind of car you drive, how hot your boyfriend is, how many people you've had sex with. Because at the end of the day, we're all going to get old, get wrinkly, gain and lose money. We're all going to die. All of those things don't matter. So long as you hang your worth on societal approval, on people telling you that you are good enough, it is going to be a never-ending race. We should learn to love ourselves, learn to see ourselves as being enough, that we, as we are made right now, are beautiful and worthy and holy. If you're like me and thought that by being the best, the biggest, the brightest, the most hung, that if you could be the top dog, but then everybody would love you, it's still not going to be good enough. I can tell you for myself that even if you find yourself in those situations, there will always be somebody who's better. There will always be somebody who's bigger. And yeah, that sort of applause can be fun. I've never been into the apps. I've never been into hookup culture, but like one time I posted a picture of me in my briefs on Scruff and put a very provocative screen name up. I was getting literally 4 or 5 messages every 30 seconds. It felt incredibly empowering, but it wasn't real. Wasn't lasting. Like, that's not something that allows me to like live my life in that way. Like, yeah, it's fun. It's fun for the moment, but it's a high. And just like all highs, you eventually crash. And I know there's people out there that will say, oh, if you just get hotter and fitter and more whatever, you're gonna be happier. But I don't think that's the case. I know plenty of people who have amazing bodies and amazing careers, seemingly have it all, but are 1 inch away from wanting to kill themselves. I know fitness models who won't leave the house because they feel disgusting. I know people who have won major awards and have committed suicide because they still didn't feel good enough. So when are you going to give yourself permission to feel good enough? Or when are you going to say to yourself, hey, yeah, appearances matter, right? I want to take care of myself. I want to feel good in my body. I want to feel proud of my body. But at the end of the day, it's just an external thing. True self-worth comes from within. So how do we find that balance between taking care of those things and really just loving ourselves for where we're at? Because so long as our self-approval is conditional on the state of our bodies, we will feel insecure, we will feel nervous, we will do things that aren't very kind. It's never going to last. Your body is always in a state of flux. So why don't we talk positive about our body now? Why don't we shift our language now about being beautiful and being whole and being brilliant and gorgeous just as we are? And why don't we do a favor for all of our brothers and sisters on this planet and start to recognize beauty in everyone? Recognize beauty in the gender non-conforming person. Recognize sexiness in the trans person or the person with the 1.5 inch penis. Recognize that you can be beautiful and sexy no matter your shape or size or orientation or gender expression. That really doesn't matter. And I'm gonna say this with all my heart, yeah, I love a big dick, but the sexiest thing about a person is their energy and their spirit. I remember one time I went to go meet up with a guy who, brilliant, beautiful body, amazing dick, had a penthouse in downtown Chicago overlooking the city, and it was the only time I was unable to get hard. There was something so off-putting about his energy, even though outwardly he was a 15 out of 10. The energy just wasn't there for me. And then I compare that to somebody like my husband, who I personally think my husband is stunningly beautiful, and I think he has an amazing body, but I don't think that's everybody's opinion. I think most people think he's really cute, but not in the same way, right? And he's Latino, and because of his race, he's never felt as attractive. Whether you admit it or not, white people are considered more attractive in gay culture. They're the ones who get the reposts, they're the ones who get the likes, they're the ones who get the hearts, the double taps. I think he's beautiful, but the sexiest part about him to me is his energy and his spirit. He's this little beautiful philosopher. I call him my little saint, my little Buddha, because he just has these beautiful perspectives on everything and is so soulful and authentic and grounded in everything he does. I think his penis is perfect for me and magnificent. He's a little bit on the larger size of average, but you know what? I'm a horrible bottom and he can't fit me. And so if he were any bigger than he is, I would never be bottoming and there would just basically be no sex in our relationship. A big dick might be super fun for a moment, but where are you gonna put it? I've been with guys where I'm like, oh, that's not going anywhere. That's not going inside of me. I love him. And yeah, his penis might be on the larger size of average, but it's perfect for me. I love it. So let's do a little meditation together. Close your eyes, take a few deep breaths. Feel your thoughts still. Feel your jaw relax, your face relax. And if you're a guy watching this, just go ahead and reach down and grab hold of your member and just tell him thank you. Thank him for all the pleasure he brings you. Thank him for all the joy you feel through him. Tell him that he is perfect and you love him. Tell him that he is more than enough for you. Tell yourself that you are more than enough. Yeah, grow, change, evolve, try to become a better version of you. But at the same time, accept yourself for where you are. At the same time, love yourself and know that you're perfect. There's nothing you need to change or do to be worthy of love and acceptance. You as you are wonderful. Every living creature is deserving of love. Every living creature is deserving of acceptance. You don't have to prove or do anything to make that so. By simply being alive, you are worthy. And so is everyone else. Every sentient being is worthy of love and affection, kindness, respect, generosity. Be with yourself and know that you are enough. Say that with me. I am enough. I am enough. I am enough. All that I am enough. I'm Kay, this is Ecstatic Self. If this was meaningful to you, please let me know what you thought. Please let's turn this into a conversation. Shoot me an email, leave a comment below, maybe share this with somebody else. All us dudes deal with insecurity even though we're not supposed to show it. So maybe share it with somebody who you think will enjoy. I have a book coming out shortly, Journey to the Ecstatic Self. I would love for you to check it out. It's available now on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, wherever books are sold. Thank you for your time.